I never thought my marriage to Karen would end up like this. We were the perfect couple, or so I thought, but things started to change when she began to taunt me for being dumb. At first, I thought it was just playful banter, but it quickly turned into something more hurtful. Karen was a successful businesswoman who had always been driven and ambitious. I admired her for her success and was proud of her accomplishments. But as time went on, she started to become more distant and critical of me. It all started when I was in college. I had just moved to a new city and was feeling a bit lost and alone. I decided to join a new few clubs to try to meet new people, and that's where I met Karen. Karen was beautiful, intelligent, and funny. We hit it off right away, and I knew I wanted to get to know her better. We started to hang out more often, going to movies and concerts, and trying out new restaurants. As our relationship grew, I knew that Karen was the one for me. She was everything that I had ever wanted in a partner, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. So I decided to propose. It was a beautiful day in the park, and I had arranged for a picnic. I got down on one knee and asked Karen to marry me. She said yes, and we spent the rest of the day celebrating. Our wedding day was perfect. We had chosen a beautiful venue, and our families and friends had all come to celebrate with us. Karen looked stunning in her wedding dress, and I felt like the luckiest man in the world. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and kissed for the first time as husband and wife. The sun was shining, the brides were singing, and everything felt perfect. It was a moment that I'll never forget. After the ceremony, we had a reception in the garden outside. The weather was perfect, and the sun shone down on us as we laughed and danced with our friends and family. Karen and I shared our first dance as a married couple, and I held her close as we swayed to the music. As the night went on, we took a break from dancing to cut the cake. Karen's face lit up with delight as we slid into the beautiful creation, and we fed each other pieces of it, laughing and enjoying the moment. It was a night full of joy and laughter, and we were surrounded by the people that we loved. The wedding had been beautiful and the reception even more so. Karen and I danced the night away and toasted our future together. It was a night filled with love, laughter, and happy tears, and now finally it was the time to step down to our hotel room for our wedding night. I remembered feeling a bit nervous and excited all at once. Karen and I had decided to wait for sexual intercourse until we get married, so this was a special moment for us. As we entered our hotel room, I was completely surprised. The room was adorned with rose petals and candles, and the bed was covered in satin sheets. It was the perfect setting for our first night together as husband and wife. Karen and I spent the night talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. It was a beautiful and intimate moment, and I felt so lucky to be with her. I was excited to finally commencate our marriage, but as we lay in bed, Karen dropped a bombshell on me. She wasn't a virgin. I was devastated. How could she keep something like that from me? And why wait until our wedding night to tell me? I felt betrayed and hurt. We had made a promise to each other to wait until marriage, and she had broken that promise. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart sank as I realized that our marriage was based on a lie. I had given everything to this woman, and she had deceived from me from the very beginning. I felt like a fool, and I knew that I could never trust her again. The rest of the night was a blur. The damage had been done, and I knew that our marriage was over before it ever began. I did not sleep that night, and I knew that the next day would bring the end of our short-lived marriage. I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal, but Karen acted like it was no big deal. She even laughed it off and told me that I was overreacting. That's when I realized that she had no respect for me. She was sleeping with her boss and thought I was a fool. That's when I decided to take revenge. I wasn't going to let Karen get away with disrespecting me like that. I hatched a plan to give her a series of shocks that would make her regret ever messing with me. The first shock came over when I confronted her about her affair with her boss. She was shocked that I knew, but I played it cool. I told her that I did not mind and that I was okay with it. But the truth was, I was seething inside. How could she cheat on me like that? After all, we had just gotten married, and she was already having an affair. I knew that I had to make her pay. The second shock came when I started to make small changes to our home. I moved things around and made it look like Karen was losing her mind. She would complain about things being out of place, but I would deny ever moving them. It was driving her crazy. She always spent hours looking for something that I had moved, only to find it in the same spot where she had left it. It was a small thing, but it was driving her insane. The third shock came when I started to distance myself from her. I would spend more time at work or with my friends, leaving her alone at home. She would try to reach out to me, but I would always have an excuse not to be with her. It was clear that something was wrong, and Karen was starting to panic. The fourth shock was when I started to make it look like Karen was cheating on her boss with someone else. I would leave little clues around the house that would make it look like she was having an affair. I wanted to make her feel the same sense of betrayal that I felt. The next shock came when I started to make her doubt her sanity. I would leave notes for her telling her that she had forgotten to do things that she had already done. I would move objects around and make it look like she was the one doing it. Karen had no idea that all of this was part of my plan. She thought that I was just being weird and controlling, but I was enjoying every minute of it. I was finally getting my revenge. As the weeks went by, I continued to execute my plan. I started to make it look like Karen was losing her mind by rearranging furniture, hiding things, and making it look like she was forgetting things. I would leave notes around the house that said things like, "Don't forget your keys," or "Remember to call your lover." It was subtle but effective. The next shock was when I started to make it look like Karen was having an affair with her boss's rival. I would send her anonymous messages from a fake email account, telling her how attractive she was and how much he wanted her. I even created a fake Facebook profile for this guy and had make him a friend request Karen. Karen was getting more and more paranoid by the day. She thought that someone was watching her and that her life was falling apart. But she had no idea that it was all part of my plan. The final shock came when I revealed everything to her. I recorded all of our conversations and interactions, and I played them back to her. She was shocked. She couldn't believe that I had been manipulating her all along. But even though I had achieved my revenge, I realized that I had gone too far. I had become consumed with my need for revenge and had lost myself in the process. I had become someone I didn't recognize, and it scared me. Karen was devastated, but it didn't feel any satisfaction from me. I felt sick to my stomach. I knew that I had to make things right, but I didn't know how. So I did the only thing I could think of. I left. I left Karen in our home and disappeared into the night. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but I knew that I couldn't stay there. As I drove away, I thought about everything that had happened. I had let my need for revenge consume me, and in the end, it had cost me everything: my marriage, my home, and my sense of self. I didn't know where I was going to do, but I knew that I had to find a way to forgive and move on. It was going to be a long road, but I knew that I had to take the first step. And so I drove into the night, leaving everything behind and hoping that one day I would find a way to make things right. I drove for hours, not knowing where I was going. I just knew that I needed to get away from everything that had happened. My mind was filled with a jumble of emotions: anger, sadness, regret, and shame. I had let my desire for revenge consume me, and I had lost sight of everything important. Eventually, I found myself in a small town. It was quiet and peaceful, and it seemed like the perfect place to disappear for a while. I found a cheap motel and checked in for the night. I did not have much with me, just a few changes of clothes and some cash. but it was enough to get me started. The next few weeks were a blur. I spent my days wandering around the town, trying to clear my head. I did not have a plan. I was just trying to find some sense of peace. I took odd jobs here and there to make some money, but mostly I just tried to keep to myself. Eventually, I met a woman named Sarah. She was kind and gentle, and she seemed to understand me in a way that no one else had. She started spending time together, and before I knew it, we were dating. It felt good to be someone who did not judge me for my past mistakes. But even with Sarah by my side, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running away from something. I knew that I couldn't hide forever, and that eventually I would have to face the consequences of my actions. One day, I received a phone call from Karen. She was sobbing on the other end of the line, begging me to come back home. She said that she missed me and that she wanted to work things out. Part of me wanted to go back. I missed her too, and I wanted to believe that we could start over again. But another part of me was scared. I didn't know if I was ready to face the demons that I had unleashed. In the end, I told Karen that I needed more time. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I had to take things one day at a time. And so I stayed in that small town, trying to find my way back to myself, and hoping that one day I would find a way to make amends for what I had done. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. I found myself settling into routine in the small town, making odd jobs and spending time with Sarah. We were happy together, but these were always a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I knew that I couldn't stay here forever and that eventually I would have to face the consequences of my actions. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Karen's lawyer, informing me that she had filed for divorce. The news hit me hard. Even though I knew it was coming, I had always hoped that we could work things out, but it seemed like that was no longer an option. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process everything that had happened. I felt like I had lost everything, my marriage, my home, and even my sense of self. It was a difficult time, but Sarah was there for me every step of the way. She listened to me, comforted me, and helped me pick up the pieces. As time went on, I started to feel I was making progress. I started to see a therapist, and I began to work through my feelings of anger, sadness, and regret. It wasn't easy, but I knew that it was something I had to do if I ever wanted to move on. One day, as I was walking through the town, I saw a poster for local community theater production. It was a play that I had always loved, and I suddenly felt a spark of inspiration. I had always been interested in acting, but I never ever pursued it seriously. Maybe now was the time to try. I auditioned for the play and was surprised to find that I got a part. It wasn't a big role, but it was enough to give me a sense of purpose and direction. Rehearsals became a regular part of my routine, and I found that I looked forward to them every day. As opening night approached, I felt a sense of excitement and nervousness that I had not felt in a long time. It was a feeling that reminded me of who I used to be before everything fell apart. The night of the performance arrived, and I walked out on the stage, feeling a rush of adrenaline. As I recited my lines and prayed my part, I felt like I was truly alive for the first time in a long time. When the play ended and the audience gave me a standing ovation, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that I had not felt in years. After the show, Sarah came up to me with tears in her eyes and hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. At that moment, I realized that I had found something new to hold on to, a passion for acting and a sense of purpose. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward instead of being stuck in the past. Over the next few months, I threw myself into the local theater scene. I auditioned for every play I could, and even started taking acting classes to improve my skills. With each new role, I felt more confident in my abilities and more passionate about pursuing acting as a career. As my love for acting grew, so did my relationship with Sarah. We became closer than ever, and I knew that she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. One night I took her out for a romantic dinner and proposed to her. To my joy, she said yes. With Sarah by my side and newfound passion for acting, I felt like I could take on the world. I started submitting audition tapes for casting directors in large cities, hoping to land a bigger role. I knew that the competition was tough, but I was determined to make it. Finally, I got a call I'd been waiting for. A casting director had seen one of my audition tapes and wanted me to come in for audition for a major motion picture. I couldn't believe it. This was my chance to make it big. With Sarah's support, I traveled to the audition and gave it my all. The audition was nerve-wracking, but I felt like I nailed it. A few days later, I got the call. I had landed the lead role in the movie. I was overjoyed. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for, and I knew that I had worked hard to earn it. With Sarah by my side, I set off to start filming the movie, excited for what the future held. Looking back to my journey, I realized that my darkest moment, the end of my marriage, had also been the catalyst for my greatest transformation. Through the pain and struggle, I found a new passion, a new love, and a new direction in life, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them head on.